Ready? Okay, here we go. There are three things that make you you. There are 3 points to your psychology triangle. There's knowing, feeling, and doing. It's the only 3 things that that make you who you are. The 3 points of the triangle, they call it thinking, feeling, and behaving. But it's knowing, feeling, and doing, which is your intellect, your intellectual, your viscera, your visceral, and your actual, your doing. Know the scene, be the scene, do the scene are the 3 aspects. The three being this: the intellectual, the visceral, or emotional, if you will, but visceral is kind of a better word for us. Viscera is Latin for guts, it's your viscera. And then the actual, which is the doing, which is to take action. And those are the 3 points of the psychology triangle, the 3 points of your essence, is who you are. And I had been teaching already for years that the 3 pillars of acting, I call it, are story, emotion, and focus. And those are synonyms for each other. Good. I call it the 3 pillars because if you take any one pillar out, performance falls. You can't possibly get to the place where you're actually doing the scene if you pull away one pillar. 3 pillars puts a platform that performance can be on. You must know your story, you must be inhabiting the emotionality of the story, and you must be doing the story. The last one seems obvious, but it's actually the biggest block for all actors. Story, emotion, and focus are the 3 pillars of acting. And now I'm going to explain physically. Actors woefully suck at this, are self-indulgently obsessed with this, and mostly are terrified of that. This is going to be hard, this one. Story. Emotion. Focus. Story. What the fuck is going on? Most actors, we're going to talk about this on Friday, that's all I'm talking about. I'm going to be talking about only this one pillar on Friday. And then this pillar and then that pillar in the next 2 days. But story, actors are woefully terrified of it. I'm going to touch on this way more on Friday, but the reason why they're terrified of it is because it is about the intellectual. And we have come to this because we're artists. A lot of you are feel like you're not educated. So you're afraid of the intellectual, so you run away from it. I have never met a successful actor, an actor of high stature who I've worked with, who was not desperately, deeply, insanely educated. And I don't mean degrees, I mean a lot of it's self-educated, but educated. So you need to educate yourselves. So in story, you need to go, story, circumstances, objective, relationships, what's the arc of the scene, what's the structure of the scene, what's the 3-act structure of the scene, what are the major realizations, what are the minor realizations, how do those realizations translate themselves into decisions, and from all that material, what's the underlying truth underneath that, what's the counterpoint, and how does this relay itself over the tension of the scene, and is it a positive to negative scene or a negative to positive scene, and what are the interplaying psychological relationships involved in all of that. And you study, I'm going to teach all that on Friday, and you study scene analysis until you are so cornered by the scene and the structure of the scene. Actors are pretty good at understanding story. Most actors don't even realize there's a thing called structure. Structure is what everything hinges upon. You study this until you're absolutely vomitously blue in the face. You don't know what it's going to sound like, what it's going to look like, what the volume is, where you're standing, whether or not your eyes are going to go down or up and all that shit. What you understand is I understand what each one of these moments means to my character. Because right now, that moment, if you stopped and thought about it, you all know what that moment means to you. What's out there has to be in here. Only an actor is somebody who would stand and not know what this moment means and hope they can find it in the moment. That's crazy! Because people don't do that. People know. If you stop and you say, what was that moment about? They'll figure it out. They'll know. Or they'll call their therapist and they'll tell them. I'm just kidding. Right. Story analysis. So you need to, I'm going to kill myself. You need to study story until you're blue in the face. Once you've studied story, you say, now, what's the emotional truth of my character? At core, who am I? At core, deep down, what is going on with this person? And what is my experience and the images that are involved in that, and how do I play with my imagination, and how do I render myself into the place that they're at, so that I can honor their truth. And then go, right, now, based on all of that, what are the actions that need to be played? Play those actions. Do it. Focus. and cut. So an actor has to go process. Actor has to go story, 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 guts, 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 focus, 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 go, action, boom, cut. And then the director goes, okay, good. Bring it down a little. No, let's do it again and let's look at this instead. And you have to go, right, is that a story note? Or is it an emotional note? Or is that a focus note? And that's how you take notes. You adjust on the pillars of the 3 pillars. It's about the intellectual, the emotional, and the visceral. It's the knowing of the scene, the being of the scene, and the doing of the scene.